When arriving at big waters like this, the first thing to do is to locate the fish. And you can do this in two ways. You can speak to the locals and find out where most of the carp get caught. You can also find out how heavily stocked the water is as well. But the most important is to go looking for fish yourself. Now, we have a very large water here at Mantova. The River Mincio is dammed, and there's 3 very large lakes totaling several thousand acres. Some waters like this are heavily stocked and some are not. So the first thing I would do is to drive around the lakes, stopping wherever I can for a few minutes at each place, looking for signs of fish. By signs of fish I mean fish jumping, bubbling, bow waving, any signs at all, as long as you're happy that they're carp and not other species. If there's no signs of fish jumping, I would spend more time in the windy areas. If there's a wind blowing on the water, go to where it's most windy and see how you feel about it. Sometimes when you can't see fish at all, it's down to feelings, and you can stand at a place and say, yes, I think this is a good place, or vice versa. Now, I've had a good look round, looked at all the 3 lakes. There's very few fish moving. By fish I mean carp. There's lots of black bass and other small fish rolling. And what I've done is I've spoken to the locals, and there's a couple of carp anglers just down the bank from here, and it's obvious that this lake is very heavily stocked. There is thousands of carp in here, so we don't have a problem with location of fish. I think the best thing we can do in this case is to fish an area where we know, from what we've been told, that carp are caught regularly. So in this particular instance it's been made easy for us, but we could have easily arrived here. There might not be many carp in the lake and the locals can't help, and then it is down to sheer hard work and experimenting. But for now we're going to go to a chosen spot where the locals advise us to go and where we know there will be carp. Choice of tackle is very important. I'm fortunate in that I can afford new, good quality gear, but if you've got old equipment, then it needs to be well maintained when travelling long distances, fishing waters like this for long sessions. It's perhaps best if I go to the swim to show you what I'm using, and by doing this I can carry on fishing. Let's have a look. With all the equipment, the most important thing is that everything's got to be reliable. Buzzers. I use the Fox Micron SXs. They're very reliable. They're nice and loud, which is important, especially when you're perhaps trying to sleep at night or something. They've got sensitivity adjustment and an LED to warn you which rod has got the bite on it, obviously. I always bring a spare buzzer with me, so I've got 4. I keep one in the kit bag. You never know when something's going to go wrong. Moving on to indicators, these are Fox swingers. You can use hangers and springers. What I like about these is they've got an adjustable weight. You can slide it up or down, and they register drop backs very good. And when fishing these big waters, at often long distances, you do get a lot of drop back bites. So you need the swinger high up so it can show a fish that may pick up your lead and swim towards you. So good quality indicators. Moving on to the reels, now these are very important. Obviously they've got to be reliable and in good condition. They've got to hold a lot of line, a minimum of 250 metres, preferably 350 metres. I do actually carry some larger reels if I'm actually going to row the baits out very long distance. These are Shimano 8010 bait runners with a double handle, lovely reel. As you can see, it's a very wide spool. They hold a lot of line. It's got a bait runner facility, which is ideal for this sort of fishing. You can fish with the bail arm closed and have the bait runner on, and all you need to do, flick of the handle, and you're in normal mode for playing the fish. Rod rests are very important. Mine are stainless steel. You often come across rocky ground like this, so they have to be very good quality. Also the buzzer bars for the back and front, I prefer stainless steel once again. A bit heavy to carry, but you do need the quality. And I'm also using these at the end here, Fox rod clamps. When I don't need to use them, I just leave them like they are now with the rod resting on top. But there's times when your rod is likely to get dragged into the lake, then you push them down into the rod clamp, nice and securely. Moving on to the rods, now obviously these are my favourites. Shimano Diaflash 13 foot 3 pound test curve. And what's particularly good about these rods is they're not only good for very long distance casting, but they're also very good for close range fishing. So I get a lot of pleasure out of using these rods at all distances. Apart from that, as I said earlier, everything needs to be in very good condition. If you can't afford new modern gear like I do, then just make sure everything's maintained properly. Bring spare things like spare reel, spare buzzer, even the odd indicator. Plenty of line. I usually carry 9 spools, so it's 3 spools of different breaking strain lines, because you never know what you're going to encounter when you arrive at a lake like this. And that's basically it. Rigs need to be kept simple, and by that I mean they need to be strong and tangle free. Now if you're using nylon hook links, you don't need all the tubing, but if like me you're using the Christon range of products, Silkworm, Merlin, Quicksilver, etc., you do need tubing up the line. Now I've got a couple of basic rigs here to show you. This is the Tadpole Rig setup, which is basically a fixed lead. You can see that there's some thin tubing up the main line here, and that is to stop the hook link from tangling around the main line, because these super new hook links, they are prone to tangles, so you need a tubing up the line to stop the tangles. That's all the tubing is for. You can see from these Tadpole setups that there's a piece of steel coming out of the lead, especially made, fixed lead, and it's a helicopter setup. By that it means that this hook link goes through the air spinning rather like a helicopter, and it doesn't tangle. So that's the Tadpole type fixed lead setup. If you don't want to use that, you can just use this very simple arrangement where you have some soft tubing up the line. Again, like the other setup, it needs to be longer than the hook link. If you look at this, you'll see that that tubing is longer than the hook link. If it was shorter, then it would get tangled in on the cast. Now, hook link materials, a good standard hook link material is the Christon Silkworm. It's very good in practically all situations. It's available in different breaking strains, and I'm using this at the moment. Now on the second video in this series we will show you many more types of lines and their applications. For the hair rig I use 2 methods, and you can see here I've put some 1mm tubing onto the hook, which is quite a snug fit, and I've tied the hair to that tubing, and I can move that tubing around the hook wherever I want the hair to come off of it. I can have it coming off at the top here, or I can have it coming off at the bottom. Where that is now is one of my favourite positions, and this is quite a strong hair on this one. The length varies for 2 reasons, depending on the size and amount of boilies, and this one is tied so that it can take 2 20mm boilies. And the other reason is you need to experiment with the distance that the bait is away from the hook, but 1/4 of an inch away from the hook is a good starting point if you're not sure, and then you can change positions, change length of hair as you start fishing and you learn more about it. So, but basically this is a good start. Have the hair coming off at the bottom of the shank. Now this one is the length, I've judged the length there for 1 20mm boilie, so I'll put the boilie on there. All you need is a needle, baiting needle. Just push it through the boilie, and you'll see there is a small barb on this needle, and you just put the loop over there and the barb stops the hair sliding off. You push the bait on to the hair like so. Now all you need to do now is to put a boilie stop through that loop in the hair. The little plastic boilie stops, You can get them from all fishing tackle shops. Now I'll put that in there and just pull the hair back until the boilie stop is tight against the boilie. Now you can leave it like that. I prefer to just push that into the boilie slightly so that it's nice and smooth and the fish doesn't feel any sharp objects. Now you can see that is about 1/4 of an inch from the hook, and that's a good distance to start, but you need to experiment. You might find on some fisheries at certain times a shorter hair is better, and other times a longer hair is better. As far as hooks are concerned, everybody has their favourite, and mine are the Partridge Z15 boilie carp hooks. I use size 4 for 20mm boilies and size 6 for 15mm boilies. Well, it's 35 degrees C in the sun here now, and not only are the baits boiling, but I'm boiling too. So I think we'll take this opportunity to go somewhere in the shade and have a much closer look at the baits. Boilies, you've got two choices. You can buy ready-mades or you can make your own. Ready-mades come in lots of different sizes, 10mm, 15mm, 20mm. And really what you're looking for in a boilie is a good hard texture, nice shape, and a good smell and taste. Now these are very hard and very good for fishing big waters for big fish. The boilies come in different pack sizes, 200 grams, 1 kilo, 5 kilo, 10 kilo. Also, there's pop-ups that are ready-made, and this saves a lot of problems if you don't like making your own pop-ups. You can buy them as they are. The other choice, as I say, is making your own baits, and there's lots of base mixes on the market like these here, and flavours and enhancers, stimulators, colours, etc. If you're going abroad and fishing big waters and you're making your own bait, you will need to preserve it, and there are preservers on the market now, liquid preservers and powder preservers like this one. Otherwise, if you don't preserve them, you'll find that a few days in a hot temperature they will start to go mouldy. So for me, going abroad, and for a lot of other people, ready-mades is the answer. They won't go mouldy after being in the hot temperatures. You can afford to take too many with you because you can bring them back again and take them next time you go. And obviously these very big 5, 10, 15 kilo bags are the most economical way of buying them. So this is what's for me, 20mm ready-mades for big fish on big waters. Right, as it's our first day on the water, I'm not going to put too much bait out. We don't know what to expect at the moment, and over-baiting is a very easy thing to do, and it will stop you catching fish. Better to underbait, and you can always put some more out later. Once you've got a lot out there, you can't really get rid of it. Using a throwing stick takes a lot of practice, and you can't always drop all the baits in one spot. Sometimes the catapult is more accurate. What I'll do is I'll put, these are 20mm boilies, and I'll put about 50 out here, and I'll cast out a rig with 2 20mm boilies on it. I think this is honey nectar flavour. Good reliable bait. Always use a bait that you know catches fish. You don't want to be sitting behind your rods wondering if the problem is bait. I'll just put out a few more. And then we'll go and get the rod and cast out. There's no need to use a stringer on this setup because I know I've got lots of free offerings around the hook bait. But that seems to be the only feature in the swim. So the other rods are going to have stringers on, because when you're casting them into the middle of nowhere, it's nice to know you've got 1 or 2 free offerings right next to the hook. Right, another 2 baits and that will do us. Go and get the rod. The important thing here is to drop the hook bait just this side of the marker. And so for accurate casting, you want to do an overhead cast, and here we go. Now that's about 18 inches this side of the float, which I would say is perfect. We've got bait in that area, and we'll leave that there. We'll put the rod back on the rod rest. Now we know we're on a feature. We know we've got ground bait exactly on that feature, and then we now know we've got the hook baits on it. We can't lose. Making a stringer is very simple and well worth the effort. The best on the market is the Christen Meltdown. This dissolves in about 30 to 60 seconds in warm water, and in very cold water takes about 4 minutes in the winter time. Right, so we'll just quickly run through. We'll take a length of the Meltdown, and we'll use a long stringer needle. You can use a shorter one obviously, but you can only put 1 or 2 on at a time otherwise. Now using stringers cuts down your casting distance, so if you're fishing long range you don't want to put too many baits on the stringer. Only maybe perhaps 3, but as we're fishing medium distance I'm going to put 5 on this stringer, like so. Now I'm going to pull the Meltdown through the baits using the needle, and I'm going to double it up like this. All we have to do is push the baits onto the Meltdown like so, and the next stage is very important. You see now there's a loop there. We put that over the hook and we push the first bait up, but you must always leave a gap here for the water to attack the PVA. If you don't, it's possible that that might not melt. And leave a gap between every boilie so that the water can attack the PVA. So we'll just move those along a bit. Now you can see there's a gap between each boilie, so that will melt very easily. It's not necessary, but if you trim the end off it will help with casting distance. You don't have to tie a knot at the end, that will stay on there nicely, and that gives you some free offerings when that melts right alongside your hook bait. Yes. A mant of a carp. Very good, very good. Come to daddy. Come to papa. Here it comes. It's a common. Yes! It's a common. Good one too. If we can get it over these rocks, we'll have a look at it. Making care not to damage it too much. Oh yeah, it's a good fish. Oh. Might be my first Italian 20. Certainly feels like it. Oh, it's 37 or 38 degrees and we're still feeding. Lovely. Double honey nectar, good old faithful. Right, let's see what it weighs. Fortunately I've got some water here to make sure that everything's wet. It's so hot, it's unbelievable. Even our Italian friends are telling us it's too hot and they're running for the shade. Let's see what it weighs. Let the water run out. See what it weighs. Yes, my first Italian 20 and just about 20. Yep. Let's have a look at this side. Kilos this side, pounds your side. Just over 20. Let's have a look at the fish. It's a little bit red down there. You can see it's been eating lots of food. Long, lean, common. In fact, it's got a very strange tail. You can see from here there's a little bit growing out further than the rest. Never seen that before. Very rare. Very strange. Still, we're not complaining. Let's have a look at the other side. Gently does it. Yeah. It's certainly behaving itself. It wasn't as placid as this when we were playing it. There you go. Lovely. And believe me, it's hot. Okay, I think we better put it back because of the sun and the heat. Lovely. Right, let's see if we can get it back without hurting it. Couldn't pick a worse bank. Unfortunately, it's all rocks around here. Right. Anyway, we've caught some lovely fish and we've met some good Italian anglers. Very friendly and helpful. And it's time now for us to leave this water at Mantova and go to a lake up north where there are much bigger fish. This is typical of the fish in this lake. Lots of long, thin, lean commons. I'll put it straight back because it could well jump out of my hands. They're very lively. So back it goes. Thank you, carp. Lovely. Here we are in northern Italy at our second venue. We've moved on from Mantova, which was a well-stocked lake with many small fish, and we've come to this very large water that holds some big carp. It's several kilometres long, but it's not very wide, 300 or 400 metres. We've got quite a job, quite a task for ourselves here because it's understocked. The fish are not showing at all, and apparently the locals say that they never jump, and there's no features on the bottom. It's flat bottomed, fairly silty. So I think the best way we can tackle this is to spread our baits as far apart from each other as we can. So I should be fishing at completely different distances, maybe 20 metres, then 50 metres and 100 metres, and also splaying the rods. And I'm fishing with my friend Paul, and he will be doing the same, and we will be using different baits, and basically we'll wait to see what we get action on before we change those methods. Now, we've picked a rather awkward swim here because there's lilies in the margins, and to keep the line out of the lilies we've had to point our rods up towards the sky. Unfortunately we've got to use a boat to land the fish because we could lose a carp in the lilies at the end of the fight. So it's a little bit awkward, but big fish don't come easy and we're willing to put up with that. Mick and Misha are fishing in a completely different type of swim to this one. They've got a comfortable bank, but more importantly they've got a very large bay to their left, which we think the carp probably swim into. So they've got the choice of the main lake out in front of them and a large bay, and they can intercept the fish as they come into the bay. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on compared with us. Now, we can't expect fish to come in every hour or two. It's a big fish water, and I'm expecting to do several days for one fish. So we'll use different baits, as I say, in different places, and we'll wait. And it's mainly a waiting game, and we'll just hope and pray that a very big fish comes along. On a big water like this, there comes a time when you need to cast a very long way, over 100 yards, and you really need to use very light line to cast a long way. But that then gives you the problem of cracking off. So we have to use a shock leader, which is a length of heavy line which takes all the force of the cast, but it's only a short length of line, and then straight away as soon as you're casting, once that shock leader leaves the rod, you're onto the light line which gives you the ultimate distance. Now, the knot you use to attach the leader to the main line is important, and we're going to use a 4-turn water knot. Now, in all the Christon products, which we're going to run through in a moment, there is an information sheet which gives you full details on this knot and others. So if you're not sure, have a look at that afterwards. Now, I'll demonstrate the 4-turn water knot, and that is for attaching snag leaders and shock leaders to the main line. There's our shock leader there, which I'm using Christon Quicksilver. It's also good as a snag leader. And this one is our nylon main line. What you have to do is double the lines together like so. Next, form a loop like so. Now I'm cheating here a bit because I haven't got a full length shock leader on. I've kept just a short length here so I can demonstrate the knot easily, but normally you would have to put the whole shock leader through. Now you take the doubled line through the loop 4 times. Once, twice, looks a bit clumsy, but it's quite easy. 3, and finally 4. There we go. Now, like all knots, it must be wetted first before pulling tight. That's what it looks like before it's pulled. So we'll just wet it. Now, when pulling it tight, just keep an eye on it and make sure that it stays neat. In fact, I'm going to put my fingers in there and just make sure it doesn't twist up on itself. Normally there's no problem. See it coming together now. In fact, I'll just wet it once more because I really do think it's important for it to be really, really wet. And then we just pull it tight. Now you can see that's formed quite a neat knot, considering the shock leader is very heavy. I'll just pull all the ends tight. Have a look at the knot, just twist it a bit. Make sure you're happy with it. And if you are happy with it, pull it to about 3/4 of the breaking strain. Make sure it's not weak. That one's okay. Now I'm going to trim the ends off. This knot doesn't slip or settle at all, so you can trim it off very close. First of all, we'll trim the quicksilver. And now the nylon. Quite close. And you can see that's formed quite a neat knot, and that's the 4-turn water knot. This rod is already set up with a shock leader, and you can see there's 4 turns of line here when you're in casting position. So it's not long before that line's gone and you're down onto the main line, which in this case is very light 8-pound nylon. Now that's for the shock leader. If you were using a snag leader, you would use 3 or 4 times this length. If you said, for instance, 4 rod lengths for snag leader, that would be fine. When we fished at Mantova, it was a relatively easy lake, and we showed using ready-made boilies and ingredients for making your own. We're now at a much harder water, and the fish are much shyer and more careful about feeding. So we need to take a lot more care in presenting our hook baits. We want our hook baits to act just like a free offering. Now there's some ways we can do this by using pop-ups. Now there's various things we can do. This is one. We can use a combination of a pop-up and a sinking boilie. And what happens with this is that it sits on the bottom, one on top of the other, like so. The hook lays to the side and the fish can suck it up very easily. This does not tend to get buried when the fish are rooting around in the area. It tends to stay on top of the silt. A single pop-up, now that can be fished either straight off the lead, which means it's quite a way off the bottom, like so, and that's very effective and not many anglers try it, and I actually will be trying it this trip. Another way is to fish a single pop-up, but to anchor it down using Christ-on heavy metal. Now you can either put the heavy metal on the hook link at whichever distance you want, using one of these rubber stops on the hook link and mould the heavy metal around it, or you can mould the heavy metal around the eye of the hook, and the best way to do that is to use a small piece of bogey, just a tiny piece, and just roll it round the end of the shank close to the eye, like so. and then around that mould the heavy metal. And by trial and error methods you can experiment to make sure that it sinks very, very slowly. I'll probably put on a little too much here, but all we need to do is go to the margins of the lake and test it. The heavy metal is available in 3 colours: the original grey, the green and the brown. Now that's moulded round there, and that will sit just like that on the bottom. An anchor could pop up. So as I say, you can fix the heavy metal there or on the hook link. Now something else you can try is what we call the greedy pig rig. The way this has come about is on many English waters for years now people have been using stringers, and the carp often come across 5 or 6 boilies in a row because people have put those on a PVA string, the string has dissolved and the carp has discovered a long string of boilies. And then whenever they pick up this row of baits, because they were free offerings, they've found that there's no hook involved, and they believe they're quite safe, and it's worth trying this, and that's 5 or 6 baits on a hair. If it's on a water where stringers have been used a lot, it can work really well because the fish discovers this string of baits, feels it's safe, and takes the whole lot. And that's what we call the greedy pig rig. 5 or 6 boilies on one hair. Now, as I said earlier, it's important that baits are critically balanced to be similar to the free offerings. Moving on to particle baits, such as tiger nuts, peanuts, even hemp. Again, you want to do the same sort of thing. Here we have 2 tigers on a hair, and in between there's a piece of cork. And I've trimmed that cork down so that it just about sits on the bottom above the hook like that. No higher. And that's important with tiger nuts because when you've got perhaps 200 or 300 tiger nuts in the area and the fish are rooting around, digging around in the silt, some of the baits get deeper and deeper into the silt. Well, you don't want your hook bait to do that. You want it to stay on the surface of the silt all the time. So a small piece of cork will achieve that. You can do the same with peanuts. If you're fishing with small seed baits like hemp, then all you have to do is mould some bogey around the hook and dip it into the dry hemp seeds. And it's as simple as that, and that will be very light in weight. So there you have it. We will be fishing much more technical, much more critically balanced hook baits in the hope of tempting one of these difficult carp.
Here's Mick portion.
Oh, thanks, Paul.
Wow. Misha. Mine is bigger.
And Kevin.
What is that?
Thank you very much. As I've already said, on big waters like this where there's no features, it's best to spread all your rods. And I always like to put one at very long range on these waters, often places that have not been fished before. And obviously for this you need a marker. So I'm going to row out to the middle of the lake. I've got a marker with me and the bait, and I've got a baited rod as well. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can take the rod out with you, which we'll show you in a minute, or you can get someone to hold the rod on the bank and you just bring out the terminal tackle. I like to do it this way. I'm a great believer in do as much as you can on your own, because you never know when your companion can't help you. So what I'm going to do is put a marker about 150 metres out, and we'll put some bait round it and drop the terminal tackle there. One of the important things to remember is always fish your side of the marker. Don't fish right on top of the marker, otherwise when you hook a fish you could well get tangled with the marker, and you don't want to be playing a fish and a marker because that can lose your fish. So I normally bait 1 to 2 rod lengths away from the marker, and that's where we'll drop the terminal tackle as well. Just check the distance, a few more yards. And we'll fish 2 other rods closer in and we'll see what happens. Right, I think this is probably about the place we could do with it. So we'll just stop the boat. We're going to drift a little bit in the wind, but that doesn't matter. There's hardly anyone else fishing, so it doesn't matter where we keep our baits. First thing is to put the marker in. There's lots of different types of markers. This one everyone calls a dog bone marker. It's made in America. And it's got a lead strip at the bottom. Normally you just wrap it around a stone of some sort. You need a decent weight at the bottom of the marker, because when the wind gets up strong, you don't want the marker drifting away. There's nothing worse than getting a swim going, lots of bait in it, you're catching fish, and all of a sudden your marker's gone and you don't know where it was and you have to start again. Right, we'll just drop this over the side. The cord is just turned loosely around the middle of the marker. It's simply a matter of just dropping it. And that's now reached the bottom. Just a tiny bit more slack. And then you just want to tie it off. You can do this in several ways. I just do an ordinary granny knot around the marker a couple of times. We are drifting a bit at the moment, but it doesn't matter. That's now tied off. It's a couple of feet longer than the actual depth of the water. You mustn't have it too long. If you've got lots of slack, the marker could end up 20 foot one side of the bait one day, and then when the wind's going the other, it could end up 20 foot the other side. So that's the marker in. Now I'm just going to row to my side of the marker, the swim side of the marker, to put some bait in, and then the terminal tackle. One other problem with marker fishing is if it's a lake that's used a lot by boats, holiday makers and that, they often come along to see what the marker is and pick it up and go off with it, and that's a bit of a disadvantage. So if you're fishing a busy water, you really want to keep an eye on the marker. Right, in goes some bait. The amount of bait, you might ask. Well, I like to bait lightly at first. The bait wants to be 1 to 2 rod lengths away from the marker. You can throw the odd ones further round. I like to throw just odd ones all around, because it'd be a shame to have some fish pass close by and not realise there's bait in the area. So I often throw a few odd ones about. Just might draw in 1 or 2 passing fish. Right, now we've drifted in the wind slightly. I'll just row back to put the bait in. Wind can be a problem. It's only a light wind today, but it's exciting, this marker fishing, because you're sort of creating your own feeding spot where you want it to be, and sometimes it can take a couple of days before it works, but once it starts to work, it can be really rewarding. Right, I've got the rod ready, the bait's on the rig, ready to go. And it's just a matter of dropping it, as I say, 1 or 2 rod lengths away from the marker. So here we go. That's it. Now what I do now is you can go back with open bow line, but with the Shimano you can just go back with the bait runner on, and that will keep the line fairly straight as you're rowing back. Now it is important to row back in a fairly straight line. You don't want a big bow in your line. Keep looking back at the bank. Just turn the boat into the correct position. I will just straighten the line up I think once. With the wind drifting us a bit. Let's just tighten it up slightly. That's it. Onto bait runner. Leave the rod there. And back we go. Another advantage of the bait runner system, because if you had to do this on open bow line there would be too much slack line paying out. Now just a matter of keeping an eye on the swim and the marker and rowing back in a straight line. And there we have a perfectly presented boilie with bait immediately in the area around the hook bait at a distance we couldn't normally fish. I'm going to cast this rod long distance, and you can see I've got a shock leader on here with 3 or 4 turns on the spool, but before doing so I'm going to apply some of this Crystal Grease Lightning. It's a fairly new product, reduces friction and therefore increases the casting distance. Put a few drops onto the spool so that it penetrates the line, and wait a few seconds. On the first cast the grease lightning is transmitted to the inside of the rings and any area of the rod that the line happens to slap, and then it's the second and subsequent casts that you actually gain the real distance with. Okay, so we're attempting to cast this one about 100 metres. So here we go. Lovely. You can tell the grease lightning is working because the passage of the line coming off the spool and through the rings was much quieter. Shock leader is halfway along the rod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuck down on the bottom of the lake. C'è un po' di filo. Non ho lottato fino adesso che siamo vicini, iniziando a fare un po' di scena.
Let's hope it's a big one.
Yeah, let's hope that is big.
Just take your time, no hurry. You don't want to lose it.
Non vuole proprio alzarsi su dal fondo.
Is it near the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ecco che forse sta venendo. Eccola lì.
Ah, yes, good fish.
Tiriamo ancora giù.
Nice fish.
Yeah.
Lovely colour.
Proprio un bel colore. E va ancora. Incredibile come quando gli si mette un po' di forza dalla barca iniziano a tirare come delle matte. Ecco, quasi sotto la barca. Un'altra.
You think it's nearly ready?
Yeah, nearly ready.
Okay, I won't stand up.
È quasi pronto per il guadino. Eccoli che monta su.
Oh yes, nice.
Ecco che arriva. Ecco che
Yes.
monta nel guadino.
Well done.
Ok.
A little bit bigger than the others, I think. We've been told there's such big fish in here, and we keep catching tiddlers.
Yeah.
I don't think this is huge. It's bigger. Certainly bigger than the others we've been having. It's a nuisance having to keep coming out on the boat. It's got so many lilies in front of our swim, we daren't try and land them from the bank.
Yeah, mind you, you've got to suffer sometimes, haven't you? We can swim.
I don't think this is a particularly big one.
No.
No. Just take my time, there's no rush, is there?
No. So we're not going to hit the 15 kilo average that they told us about.
No. There's obviously some whackers in here, but
It's big enough for it, isn't it?
we're getting a run of small ones, aren't we?
He likes it on the bottom, doesn't he? Pardon the expression.
Yeah. It's certainly over 20. It's doing a bit of head knocking and that. It'd be lovely if it was £50, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. I think this lake could hold a 50. I mean, the size of it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not really... He's holding his own, but he's not doing anything fantastic.
Probably didn't realise what was happening.
No. Some of these fish have never been caught before, so he's certainly woken up now. It's making my arm ache.
Yeah?
That's just a good one.
Haven't seen yet. Drifting towards the side.
No, we'll get him in. We'll get him in.
I just saw a little glimpse there. The tail.
There
There
it
it
is.
comes. Ooh.
Mid-20 perhaps?
Yeah. It's definitely a bigger fish. Ooh.
The boat's spinning a bit.
I'm getting dizzy.
Fish is pulling us around. I'll bring him towards the back of the boat.
Yeah.
Alright? Make it a bit easier for you.
Yeah. Not the net right in just yet because he's still pretty lively.
God. Unbelievable,
It's like
man.
being on a carousel, isn't it? Ooh. Lovely fish. Lovely mirror. Where's he going?
Hang on a minute. Right. I'll bring it towards the back of the boat.
I've lost him now. Let's get the net down. I have to turn myself
I'll sit
around.
down, Mick.
Yeah.
Alright. Don't want two of us.
Sit down, you're rocking the boat. Come to Mickey.
Got it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well done,
Easy.
mate.
Oh, it's a lovely one.
Oh, I thought well.
Yeah, lovely fish. It's a 20, definite 20.
Lovely, well done. What do you want to pack the net? Throw the net back or something?
Yeah.
Bring it aboard, yeah?
Yeah. Put something down on the floor.
Smashing. Yes, a few bits and pieces there. Set some line out.
Yeah.
Right, shall we weigh this
Yeah.
fish? It's one of the biggest so far.
Lovely fish, Kevin.
Yeah.
Lovely fish.
Not as big as we were told that were in the lake, but
No,
that's all part of carp fishing, isn't it?
that's right.
Mind you, a lake of this size, it could be a lot bigger, but where are they?
Yeah.
Shall I read it off?
Yeah, well you lift it up and I'll read it off. You're stronger than me. Scales are not big enough. They only go to 220 pounds. 21, 2.5. You've deducted the weight of the sling already, haven't you?
Yeah.
22.5.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's have a little look at the fish, shall we? A lot of the fish have been long and thin. This one's not terribly deep, is it?
No. He obviously likes his pasta more than the others, huh?
The fish were supposed to average 15 kilos, 16 kilos, but we've had several fish between about 18 and this size.
No scarring. Doesn't look like it's been caught before.
No.
Lovely
Yeah.
fish.